Hello and welcome to your virtual environment tutorial or virtual ENV tutorial. Um, Center my, there we go. Alright, so what is virtual ENV? It's a Python package that allows developers to create isolated Python environments. Um, Basically, this package is extremely helpful for version control, package control, and overall organization of all your Python packages. If you're writing more than one Python package, or say you're working with Django, um, it's highly advised that you use a virtual environment or virtual ENV. Um, when we write programs, there will be times when we need to update a package that we're using or make changes to some packages on our operating system. And if we go ahead and change these files, our Python project probably isn't going to work. So the idea behind virtual env is it creates an isolated version of Python and its packages in a certain directory. So that gives us the ability to update and change them without changing other files on our computer that would affect other projects. So that's what virtual env is. So how do we use virtual env? Well, if you've seen a couple of our other tutorials, you might have already installed virtual env, but right now we want to go through the whole virtual env package, which will give you the ability to understand how it all works and understand some more commands that you might not be aware of that come with virtual env. So that's what we're going to do today. If you haven't installed virtual env, it's really simple. All we do is pip install virtual env, just like that. Hit return. Now I already have it installed on my system, so it's going to come back and say it's already installed. Alright, but if you don't have it installed, it's going to install it on your system. For example, right here it says requirements already satisfied, so mine is already up to date. We could also do something like this. We could, you see it says upgrade, to upgrade it, so we can check to see if it's actually up to date, which I believe it is, since I use it every day. Unless they change it today, it's probably up to date. But we'll upgrade it and see if that is updated, which it wasn't. So there we go. So it's installing. Awesome. All right, so now I have the newest updated version of virtual env 15.0.2. All right, cool. So now we created our installed virtual env. How do we use it? Well, first thing we want to do when using virtual env is we want to create a directory that holds all our files for that virtual environment. So what we're going to do is virtual env and then the file name that we want to create our virtual environment in. So in this case, I'm just going to call it name for name of file, all right? Because that's where we put our file. This is the command virtual env, and this is the name of our file, all right? You can name it whatever you'd like. Hit return, and now it's going to run through some processes, and it's going to install some stuff like bin, for example, here, all right? And it's going to install lib. Bin and lib are bin's going to hold our executables for Python, for example, and then lib and include are going to include and lib are going to hold all our packages, like for example, whatever package we need for our project. When we use pip install, they're going to be installed into lib or include, depending on where they need to go. All right, so now we create the virtual environment. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's in there. So I'm going to open up my Finder here, if it wants to open. Probably not. So I'll do a new Finder window. All right, cool. So now I'm going to go to my desktop because that's where I created it at, and then we see name. All right. So in the name file, we got bin, include, lib, and pip self-check. All right. So bin is going to be our executable files. As you can see, there's Python, a couple of Python files in here, wheel, Python config, easy install, and pip, right? Pip and easy install basically do the same thing, but I prefer to use pip. All right, let's take a look at include. What's include have? Well, now you see a file called Python 3.5m. All right, what's in here? Well, this has a lot of our Python files, and lib is actually, I screwed that up. Lib, and so in here in lib you have your site packages. This is where a lot of your packages from Python are going to be held. You see some pip files, some setup files, wheel in there. Our directories, not files. In here you got all your Python files. So we got Python 3.5 installed currently in our virtual environment. Include, where I screwed up before, .h is a header file for the C language. So this is how Python interacts with the underlying C language of your operating system. It contains a bunch of functions. So all right, so we took a look at what it creates for us. All right, so let's go ahead and activate our virtual environment now. In our virtual environment, well, we created the containing directory of our virtual environment, but it's not actually activated. So if we went and installed some files into, or installed some packages, well, they're going to go into our main Python package right now because we didn't activate our virtual environment. So right now our computer doesn't know we want to be in that virtual environment, so it's just going to go ahead and dump it right into our main Python files. And you really don't want to do that. You kind of want to just keep Python as it is and then use a virtual environment to install packages. So how do we activate it? Well, first off, the easiest way to do this is, let me clear my screen real quick. The easiest way to do this is, we're in desktop. We need to be in the file that contains bin. And that file is going to be our name, or our virtual environment directory. So I'm going to do cd name, okay? If I ls it out, which is list out what's in that directory, I see bin, all right? So I need to be in the file that contains bin. And then I'm going to do source, oops, that's not source, bin activate, all right? This is going to activate my virtual environment. As you can see, the parentheses around name indicates that we have activated our environment. Now, that was I think the easiest way to do it, but there is other ways to do it. For example, first off, let's back out of our virtual environment. So I'm in name and I'm in the virtual environment. We use deactivate, and we can use this command anywhere when we're in the virtual environment. Deactivate is going to deactivate it. As you can see, the parentheses around name is gone and name's also gone. So we're deactivated our virtual environment. Now I'm going to cd back a couple just to show you. I don't have to be in this containing folder, so I could do something like this. I could do, let's see, cd desktop name, just drawing a blank there, and which says, all right, here's our first command, and then after you do this first command, do the second command, then we do source bin activate. All right, just like that, and we can activate it. Boom, you see we got the parentheses, and we changed into our name, and there you go. So we can activate it from anywhere technically, as long as you provide the path, and then the second command, source bin activate. So let's go ahead and deactivate that. All right, for you Windows users, yours is slightly different. So yours is going to be like something like this: path. No, I guess that's a backslash name. All right, so the name of our environment, and then it's going to be capital scripts, and then activate. That's how you activate it with Windows. The other way I showed you would work properly for this way up here, would work properly for Mac or Linux. Okay. Now there's a couple of commands that we probably should discuss in virtual environment. The first one would be, well, we talked about deactivate. So anywhere we're in it, we just use deactivate. Deactivate our virtual environment. Another way to do this would be to, well, how about we remove the virtual environment? So currently I'm in the name directory, but it's not activated. But I want to back out of this. So I'm just going to back out cd .. All right. Now say I want to remove my virtual environment completely. I don't want it anymore. So what I'm going to do is rm -r, which rm is, if we're just removing a file, we could use rm, the file name, remove it. But with the directory, if the directory has content in it, we have to do rm -r to say, hey, yeah, we basically know that this directory contains information or data, but still remove it. So I'm going to do rm-r name, and that's going to remove my file. So now if I go and list out what's in here, you're not going to see name. All right. Another thing we could do is, how about we check the version? I'm going to clear the screen. Check the version of our virtual environment. So we can do virtualenv --version, just like that. And that gives us 15.0.3. That's our latest version of virtualenv, and I know that because I just upgraded it. Another thing we could do is we can bring up the help, so we can see all the commands that virtualenv has associated with it. So we can do, virtualenv -h, and that will bring up all the commands. So as you can see on the left hand side here, we got -version, -h, -help would do the same thing, and you can see there's a bunch of them down here. All right. One thing you could do, if you want a ton of information loaded into your virtual environment, and I mean a lot of stuff loaded into your virtual environment that is contained in Python, you could use -w or -verbose, and that will install like a ton of crap. I was playing around with it today because I was like, what the heck does that mean? Because I've never used it. Well, it does install a ton of crap. Anyhow, one that we should definitely discuss is when we set up a virtual environment, it takes whatever path that it prefers. So in my case, well, I shouldn't say what path it prefers. If I do virtualenv dot, actually virtual, we'll create one. Then I'm going to go into it and see, well, you can see right here, but I don't even have to go into it. It loaded Python 3.5, all right? Now, I don't know if I have Python 2 on this computer or if it's only on my work computer. We'll check in a second once it's done installing. But we can actually say, hey, what version we want virtualenv to use. So if you're working on a project for a client that his project requires Python 2, you need to know how to go ahead and say what version to virtualenv of Python to use. Well, let me see if I have Python 2 on here. Yes, I do. All right, so Control D. We're going to clear this. Now we're going to go ahead and tell it what version to install. And to do that, well, actually, let me remove name real quick because that's the same one I'm going to use. rm-r name, get rid of that. Clear my screen again. And this time we're going to tell virtualenv what Python to install. So we saw beforehand, if I just do virtualenv and then the file name, it installs Python 3 for me. Well, say I want a Python 2 version. So I do Python -p and then Python, let's try 2 name. 2 doesn't work. So let's just do Python. There we go. And now it should be installing Python 2. As you can see, it doesn't tell me what version is installing, but for me to get to my Python interpreter in Python 2, I just type Python. All right. So we'll just let it load up, and then we'll go into the virtual environment, activate it, and see what version it is. We could also write this like this. We could have did virtual env Python. Oops, that's not how you spell Python. Python equal to Python, and what we're doing here is the executable. So yeah, Python 2 wouldn't work. So this is the executable of Python. So if I did Python 3 and then the dir name here, that would do it for me, right? But that's another way to write it. And this is 2 hyphens, I believe. Now it's 1 hyphen. All right, so that's how you would write it, with the dir name on the end. All right, let's go ahead and cd name and then source bin activate. We'll activate our virtual environment, and then I'm just going to do Python -- version. See what I got. We got Python 2.7.10. So that's the version that we asked for. All right. If you try to change, for example, let's do deactivate. One less example here. CD back one more, and then we're gonna do let's do. If you try to change the version of Python, watch what happens here. Virtual env and .p Python name. I spelled virtual wrong. Virtual. Do it again. Virtual env.p Python name. It's going to actually load both. Oh, crap. I should have done Python 3. Well, if I did Python 3, it would actually load Python 3 and Python 2 into that virtual environment. So in that case, I would have Python 2 and 3. Now, that would be great if I was using an interpreter to test things out. But if you're building a Python program, unless you're making it compatible with both Python 2 and Python 3, you really shouldn't do that, because you're just going to screw yourself up. So if I go cd name, actually that's not going to work because I need to put 3 in here. Sorry about that. Now it's going to throw Python 3 into that virtual environment. So we'll take a look at that in a second once it's done installing. Sorry about that. It's taking so long. There we go. Clear my screen, and then we're going to do cd name / include us. Now you see it has Python 2.7 and Python 3.5 in there. If we do cd back one, do cd lib ls, we got Python 2.7, Python 3.5 installed in there. Like I said before, that if you're making compatible 2.7 and 3.5 a program, you may want to do that. But otherwise, do not do that. First off, you're just taking up a lot of space because you got 2 versions of Python put on there, and also working with Python would be a little confusing. So if you guys have any questions, leave a comment on YouTube. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Have a nice day. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like the video.